It's a pleasure being here, and it's a pleasure to share with you the outcome of a research that we have performed together with RSPP on the view of foreign investors on doing business in the Russian regions. And the results I'm going to show you today. Yes. Is this one working?
It's not really working.
Значит, коллеги, замените нам эту штуку, потому что у нас есть к ней вопросы.
Okay, are you technical or? Can you stay here to help me? Thank you very much. This is not the first time that we have performed this research. We started 2.5 years ago with RSPP in 2010. At that stage, we performed a research where we interviewed quite intensely 12 regions and around 100 companies. And the big difference there was that this research was basically done on the basis of interaction, not only by analyzing numbers. At that stage, the outcome was, I think, interesting. At this stage, I think it's pretty much common sense, and I'll show it to you on the next slide. But today, we're going to present the second phase, or this year we're going to present the second phase in December. And we will all make sure that you will get an invitation to be present at this event. So just to refresh the minds, what was the case in 2010? I think first of all there was a big difference between hard factors and soft factors. And with hard factors we mentioned those things that you cannot change. Here it is about the infrastructure, the location, whether you have a workforce or not, whether you have natural resources. And these were the first regions that attracted investments from foreign companies. But then we saw that the soft factors really could make a difference. And here these are the simple things like developing a business plan which is aligned with companies who want to invest, having a one-stop shop, having incentives, tax and financial, which are easy to obtain, which are realistic, and best practices. And I think it was very interesting to hear this morning already from Tatarstan and Kaluga that people are copying each other, taking best practice, and not only from regions here but also from international. So I think one of the key findings here was that these soft factors really made the difference over the hard factors. So what has happened since then? I think it's fair to say that a lot of the Russian regions have improved their soft factors dramatically. I would almost say that almost every region now has a business plan. They have people who are responsible for an investment process. They look at how they can really attract business. But there is a big discrepancy. Yesterday we already heard is that Russia should be very proud on their macroeconomic indicators. 4% GDP growth if oil stays above 100. Well, in the west of Europe, people would open the bottles of champagne because they would only have, 0 or 1%. Eastern Europe, 0 to 2%. Only Poland and Turkey basically have the same GDP numbers. A budget that balances, very strong foreign currency reserves, low unemployment, and in addition, Russia also has a very big consumer market, which is only has a low penetration. But at the same time, we see an investment appetite that is going down. We see the perception of Russia, and we mentioned it yesterday already, which is not good, which is basically deteriorating. And I have to emphasize, these are views that we received from our investors. These are not our views. These are companies who are basically at this moment active in Russia. So what are you doing with this information from these investors? You can ignore it, but I think in the end, the foreign investor, the person, the company who's spending their dollars, euros or yens, they are the judge, they are right, because they have a choice whether or not to invest in Russia or in any other country. And if they invest in Russia, they have a choice in which region they can invest. So let's just share a few insights. And I will start with a very straightforward one. Presence in Russia. Those companies who are present here across the board, they're very happy and they're keen, in many cases, to increase their investment. But those who are not present in Russia, they don't often see a business case here. They only see the risks. So what can we learn from that? I think if you are a region, would it be smart to travel around the world and try to convince investors to come to your region? Perhaps not. Perhaps it's better to look at current investors in Russia who are happy to expand and try to show them the advantages of your region and the benefits that you can deliver. The second point is about implementation. I already mentioned that in the last few years, most regions have developed a strategy, have put a lot of focus on the way they deal with companies. But what we see is that these business plans are often not fully implemented in the institution, in the organization. And we often see that investors are happy with the response they get from a number 1, 2, or 3 layer. But if you go deeper down in the organization, the impact basically disappears. And I think to really make sure that the region gets the best out of it, and people call it ruthless implementation, is absolutely essential. The third area is expectation gaps. And this is a two-way process. On the one hand, foreign companies often think that investing in Russia is investing in Europe because people look the same, they see the same cars on the street, it's very close to Europe. But only after having been here for some time or having not been successful in a few cases, people see that it's a very different investment climate. And therefore it's unlikely that foreign investors on their first attempt are successful in Russia. And this is something that we should be aware of. On the other hand, regions often think that foreign companies invest in their region, but they don't invest in your region. They invest in their own companies. They invest to make a high return on their investments. And they do that in the region that can facilitate that return best. And therefore, and I come back to that point, I think a continuous dialogue, mutual understanding is incredibly important to really make all these plans, to realize all these plans. And then the last point of perception, and we touched upon it yesterday quite a few times. We say, yes, perception, it's only what people write in the newspapers, what people see on television. But we all know that perception can become reality if we don't do anything. And in our view, just changing this perception of Russia being a country with a lot of corruption, no rule of law, having a lot of bureaucracy, we heard it this morning already. Is it true? I think, yes, there are things that are true, but not very different than in other high-growth markets. And that's what our clients say as well. Is it realistic for a region to change this? No, I think it's very much a mutual exercise. It's the federal government, it's the regional governments, it's the local companies here, but also the international companies. But who can convince international business better that this is a good place to do business than by those companies who are already present here? So let's move on. What does success depend on? I think in the first thing, let's keep it simple. I didn't touch upon SME innovation yet, but it's a huge area where regions can benefit from. But when we talk about innovation, I think there's a lot of innovation that we've come across in the regions. The only problem again is that people are focusing on developing new things instead of bringing these great findings to the market and knowing how to bring it to the international markets. The second point here that I would like to mention is that we already said, try to look for companies who are already present in Russia. But then it comes to what the regions are doing. A strategy, resources, processes. We've heard a lot about it. We have heard a lot about infrastructure, doing the right things at the universities, having a business plan, having the right processes internally. But in our view, we are going to the second level, basically, of the soft factors. We go to culture, attitude, behavior. And it's basically the next step. When we started looking at how to invest in Russia, natural resources, making the difference through the soft factors. Now we come to the upper class of basically the soft factors. And that's the people. Do the people who interact with the foreign investors understand how to behave? And our view is that if you do this right, you know, it can really make the difference. And often when I explain it to clients, I make the comparison with basically my own job. I've always worked in mergers and acquisitions, and I've dealt a lot with Russian companies who wanted to sell and foreign companies who wanted to buy. And the Russian people that we were dealing with, very good businessmen, have done a lot of transactions locally. Thought, you know, they could do the same way, selling their businesses internationally. But only when you see that a good preparation, understanding what foreign investors are looking for, basically being one step ahead, disclosing if there are issues up front, these are the things that basically create trust. And when you're building trust with your investor, you reach a tipping point. And once you go through that tipping point, you basically really build friendship. And I think that's what a lot of investors say here. Once you understand your Russian counterpart, when the Russian counterpart understands the foreign investor, it's a really good place to do business. Thank you.